right? For the regulatory uh, um, aspect of documentation, right? So that's great. Um, and so he's going to talk about regulatory pathway integrating compliance into medical product development. Thank you so much for being here.
Sure. No, thanks a lot. Thanks, Professor Pepe and Shantanu for providing this opportunity for me to interact with all intelligent people here with PhDs. I'm bachelor. I'm just excited to talk to intelligent people and see how we can help here. It's been really good to have a chat with you in the morning and how we can really do a lot of things which would help you as well as us to contribute to this amazing field of science. Uh, so today's topic is a little bit heavy as regulation, so I will try to make it light. And interesting thing is in regulations, typically, people just do regulatory, for all of their life. So, but the difference between me is I was an engineer like yourself. So most of my initial time, almost 15 years, I did mostly engineering. And then we moved as a company, which we'll talk about in quality regulatory. We found a gap that, most of the regulations were done by people who were engineers, but they did not really see the full cycle of product development. The challenge is what engineers face, right? I think so. We brought that aspect in whatever we do in our company, and that has been really beneficial for our customers to understand it simplistically and then utilize it in their product development process. Great. We can move slide two. Next one. There you go. So a bit about me, Kuldeep. I did my engineering from one of the good colleges in India. Worked for a company called Caterpillar, and then worked for E2 Corporation. I was in US. I was in US for about 6 years. Mostly worked in Chicago, Minneapolis area to work for some of the largest companies in the world in medical field. Zimmer Biomet, which is one of the largest company in orthopedic implants. They make implants, knee implants. Then worked for Medtronic, which is into neuromodulation, CRDM, diabetes, other devices. Then worked for Boston Scientific, Smith and Nephew. Uh, I have been very successful in setting up very large R&D center for these companies in India. So have been 10 engineers for almost 500 engineers to do a lot of work, innovation, much faster, quicker for around the world kind of market. So each market, I think the challenge in med device is that each market and each country has its own regulation, and sometimes it's little bit of a pain to understand how they understand your product in the fashion according to the regulation. So I think that really helped us a lot. I have a lot of patents of devices which I designed when I was a rookie engineer. We're back in 2003, mostly onto the spinal side. A lot of implants which goes into human body in lumbar, thoracic spine area. Spine is very complex. Part of the body because it has a lot of nervous system compared to like orthopedics, knee or hip. You don't have to interact with a lot of nervous systems, so it becomes very critical. The devices which I invented are mechanical, electromechanical. That's about me. So I have a lot of experience on US FDA, 21 CFR Part 11, a lot of European regulations. And if you look at rest of the world, kind of follows both of them. So if you're able to follow European regulation and US regulations, you will kind of cover. Most of the Asia adopt European regulations, more or less. They have a tailored version of the European regulation, and South America mostly follows the US FDA. So if you understood both, then you'll be able to cover others. Move to next one. So a little bit about the company which I founded. So I worked for various companies in 2014. I founded Saraca Solutions. So we are a something called product engineering services. So we develop products for our customers, large companies, mid-sized companies, small-sized companies, and we help them develop these products almost from scratch and working with clinicians, surgeons, caregivers, working on the patients and understanding what is required in the device, doing whole 9 yards of development, be it mechanical, embedded, software, right? Do the testings, all the testings what are required, understanding the regulations. If you look at the standards, these are the typical standards, but they are much more. Each modalities or device kind you work on has its own standards, so you have to sort of follow them. And these are the regulations. So obviously US FDA, EU MDR, which I talked about. TGA is in Australia. They kind of tailored EU MDR. PMDA is in Japan. Health Canada is in Canada. MHRA is in UK. So after Brexit, they have, they had their own regulation previously, but they were following EU MDR, but now they have their separate.
So they went back to the.
Yeah, they went back to the original one. What they had. So, and it created a lot of issues because there was a timeline to have all the documentation done in a year or so. We did a lot of work there. Swissmedic in Switzerland and we in Brazil. And there are more, but I think, as I said, if you cover first two, and if you have documentation, interestingly, there is a ISO standard which, I talked to Professors Jeff Feng and Shantanu in the breakfast that, ISO 13485, which is the motherhood document for the medical device regulation. And interestingly, from next year, US FDA is going to follow ISO 13485.
Oh.
So they're going to stop their own standard since 21 CFR Part 11 and then start following up 13485.
And that's with the purpose of harmonizing.
Yeah, it's kind of harmonized around the world. So,
Yeah, I mean, that's
that's a great thing.
Yeah.
So it was in Europe, then Asia, USA had its own, but I think they realized a lot more burden into medical device companies and innovators like yourself that they have follow so many standards. Kind of agreed upon to harmonize it one standard. So,
So what is the agency in India?
it's CDSU. Okay, CDSU.
How similar is that from?
So like if I divide world into like three categories. So there are countries which are highly regulatory countries. So obviously US, most of the European countries, the Eastern Europe is still a little bit low regulatory, but as a that they follow the same. They are all high regulatory countries. So US, Europe, Japan, Australia, they are high regulatory countries. Then if you look at Brazil, Argentina, they are medium. And Asian countries are still low regulatory.
Okay.
So you have low regulation. So as I was talking to you in the morning, like earlier, 20 years ago, everybody in US would develop their product, launch in Europe first, and then come to US. But it's reversed now.
Right.
Because European regulations is a lot more regulations to really do the product development. Next one.
So one question I had. So the FDA is paying a lot more attention to the user feedback or input, right? And so how do you see that evolving in terms of considering the user input as part of the approval process or return process? And the second question is, particularly with new technologies, ethics, right? And of course, safety part of that, but more broadly, right? How affects not only the user, but how it affects other people.
Correct.
So what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think usability, we call it usability. So usability is very, very important. So some of the, and it depends, if it is a over-the-counter device, for example, over-the-counter device is where you just go and buy from the pharmacy. Right? So usability is important everywhere, but usability is very important here because you do not really have an intervention of a caregiver or a surgeon or physician, patient is actually going and buying. So usability becomes very important there. User inputs is very important, right? If you look at the quality management system which we set up for companies, usability is the first part. You start with user needs, right? And then there is a database, many people doesn't know there is a database called a mod database. So anybody go, and me as individual citizen, I can just go and report about any device. Anybody, yeah, anybody. So the responsibility of, let's say, if I go and say that, I have had a syringe and I had a pain. Right, you just go and you can pick the maker of the device, which hospital you went to, right? And every company has to look at these complaints. These are called complaints, like monthly basis, consolidate them and summarize them and submit it to US FDA sometime annually, sometime once in 2 years.
So this is different from the adverse events.
Yeah, so adverse event is there. That's adverse event is the responsibility of the manufacturer. Manufacturer must report if there's an adverse event. But I think there is a way for users also to provide their feedback.
Right. So that's the other one.
That's the other one, yeah. So, but you have to basically use both, because many times, you can think of hospitals and caregivers, they're very, very busy. So they underreport things many times for various reasons, right? But I think they have opened it up for public to also report their
That's good. Wasn't aware of that.
Yeah. Are there any questions so far?
Yeah, feel free to.
Yeah, just ask questions, because this is a subject which
Thank you,
not very
Shan.
exciting for all of you.
Take your opportunity.
Yeah. So this is what we're going to do today. So we'll just have a quick introduction. I talked about a bit, but we'll go more deep and we'll just pick up FDA and EU MDR. I've just picked up 2 regulations, but others are sort of similar. Then we'll talk about what are the difference between the two. That there's something called notified bodies, which we'll talk about later, but I can just give you a high level gist. What happens in Europe, obviously you have around probably 50, 60 countries in the European Union. It becomes difficult to have one centralized government body. Right? It's like US is easy, right? US government sort of runs the department, right? So Europe came out with a method that they have recognized private companies to act as FDA. So notified bodies are the companies which are approved by European Union to say that, hey, on my behalf, you can look at the documentation of the manufacturer and approve or disapprove. Right? So that's notified bodies we talk about. We also talk about global regulatory bodies, global regulations, and what are the challenges. And obviously, I'll be able to take your questions. Any questions so far, by the way?
So if we get approved from the FDA, we do not need to get approved from the other small entities that also.
No, you have to get approved.
Okay.
Exactly.
From
So the challenge in that device is that each competent authority has different way. So what I was saying, if you let's say if you have got approval in European Union, it will be easier for you to get approval, let's say in Australia or China for that matter, right? But you will still have to get approval. You still have to submit documentation in their format.
Okay.
But you will say that, hey, by the way, this are my product development document. This is the benefits, risk of the device, and on top of that, I have also got approval in Europe. So their confidence level goes up that at least somebody competent. But you will still have to do the paperwork. Any other question? Great. So what is a medical device? So this anyway, the primary reason for regulation is why there is a regulation, to make sure that, for public safety, for not only patient safety, but public safety, environment, there are a lot of things happens in the hospital. I don't know, many of you know that hospitals are the major source of infection around the world. Generally, this environment and hospital is almost 8 times more infectious, right? So how do you really ensure that, whatever surgery or operation you're doing, you are not really contributing to that effect, right? So, safety, effectiveness, intended use, you have to make sure that what is the intended use of of your device, which is very, very important. You have to describe that so that you don't really see it misused many times. Right. So let me ask a question. So what is a medical device? Does anybody know what could be a medical device? Some examples or some definition?
Well, for example, I don't remember the name, but oxyoxymeter, the one that goes on,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
that one can count as a medical device. Also, what is it?
Pulse oximeter. Yeah.
The respirator system, the one that assists the patient to breathe. That
Yeah.
would also count.
Sure.
I remember there was like a very broad definition that encompassed stuff such as, for example, surgical gloves and other tools like that, but I don't know if it was, we thought in fact, not so long ago,
Yeah.
but I don't remember the specific terms. It's that they were tools that help and stuff.
Yeah. Good. Well, that's a good point. Yeah. Surgical gloves are a medical device. Can software be a medical device? You already asked.
Not
What is it?
exactly.
Yeah.
Because a medical device at the end of the day is for the purpose of sustaining or aiding the patient.
Yeah.
But in this case, the software would function just as a medium to translate information of the patient.
Mm-hmm.
So
They're using AI for diagnostics now.
Yeah, interestingly, can add AI, let's say you're using AI tool for analyzing the data in real time on a surgery, and then you're helping surgeon with your AI tool to make decisions. Can that AI software be a medical device?
absolutely, yes.
Let's look at it. This is the FDA definition of the medical device. An instrument, apparatus, implement, machine, implant, in vitro reagent, or other similar related article, including a component, part, or accessory, which is recognized in the official national formulary or the US pharmacopy or any other supplement lab, intended for use in diagnosis of disease or other conditions. Intend to affect the structure or any function of the body of man or other animals. Right. So, I mean, this is more deeper, but you have to think about anything which could affect a patient positively or negatively, right? Is a medical device. Pharma is different, and there is something called combination devices, which we'll talk about. Devices which are pharma as well as medical devices. But for example, your thermometer, is that a medical device? Obviously, because if the thermometer is not working and my temperature is 102 and it shows 98, the surgeon or any physician will not take that. Any software which is helping a caregiver to do whatever they need when they there's a little bit yeah, this is the regulatory pathway for US FDA. So we have 510K, which is the easiest path to get approval. So 510K, you are saying that I am developing a device, but by the way, there is a device already available in the market by competition from mine or anybody else. Right? So what you have to do, you will have to just provide them evidence that whatever improvement you have made from that competition device, you have to do the testing. Otherwise, if there is no device available in the market, the term is called predicate. If there is no predicate, then you will have to either go for Dino or PM, which is like much more of a project. Medical device projects can run for almost like 3 years to 10 years.
So we talk about digital infection, but many of these devices have been approved for use in adults, right? Right. But now, if you have the same device or similar device, going to the pediatric population, what are your thoughts on that? That would be maybe a 510K if we can convince the FDA that substantially equivalent and the police are similar, but this process is growing.
Correct. Yeah.
Or is that the novel or what?
Yeah, I think it depends on the benefit and risk, and if you can, come out with similarity, that, it doesn't matter, whatever it sells for, patient, there's a huge variation, right, the demographic, right, I think in medical you have age, factors and pediatrics are treated separately, but if you're able to convince that your outcomes are not really dependent on the age, then there's a good possibility.
Because you can adjust the device.
Correct. Yeah, exactly. LVNA, post-market approval, is class 3 high-risk devices. Really, most of us require clinical data. IDs, investigation devices, allow clinical trials, single countries, and then they have pre-decision also where we will have 8,000 patients less per year, so you have some kind of exception. From FDA, you have rare disease or there's a unique condition in the hospital that thinks that there's no way for me to treat this patient and it has. And I would say not proven device, which very nascent stage, they can try it out. FDA gives approval. The risk is very high. Any questions from this one?
So, I know we told you that the person for the but that's another area, right?
That's pharma, yeah.
Yeah, never mind.
What's the meaning for the
OHDE, humanitarian device exemption.
No, but the parameter or the number that is.
Can I
Oh, 8,000?
point for you?
Yeah, so if
Patient,
patients, yeah, PD's patients. Is that your question?
Yeah.
For a small disease, very rare, the companies are reluctant for the, so they try to make it.
Absolutely, yeah, I mean, there's no other option, either patient, patient dying, or you have something to try out. That's
Well, I mean, if it's a hospital, the physician makes a medical decision, right? He can use off-label, he can do whatever, right? But
No. So here so FDA has made a provision that if you have a situation like that, you come to us, right? And you show that this is the patient condition and this is my device, they will approve it.
Right.
It's a faster track.
no, my point was, if as a physician, you have a case, as a physician, you do whatever is in the best interest of the patient, right? So you can use anything, right? But you need to declare,
FDA does not allow any off-label.
no?
No.
No, even when it's a matter of life or death.
I mean,
I mean, you, as a physician, right? You're not selling the device, you're doing what is best for this.
so this is the right rule. I think they have, I have heard that they have given approval in a very short time, in hours time also.
So really, they accelerate it.
Really fast. Generally, off-label use is prohibited extensively. I mean, there are some cases where it happens, but I think they have made it sort of a provision here that something like that will be happening.
So I have a question, we work on the field of brain-computer interface, right? And the FDA has organized workshops and they have a definition, which is not the same as the engineering definition, that this society came, right? And of course, there are no approved implantable VCR system out there, but there's an approved non-invasive one. But they don't call it VCR.
Oh, okay.
And that's where, it gets tricky because They do say, so BCI, it's a direct communication channel between the brain and cerebral, right? And so, most of the BCI, they detect intent, you know, for controlling a prosthetic hand, for controlling a computer cursor, it's a volitional signal.
Yeah.
Right? And so for the non-invasive BCI that has been approved, and they don't call it BCI, but they say in the definition is purpose-oriented electrical activity detected from the patient's brain that is used for rehabilitation, right?
So you're saying with an existing device which is there in the market, okay.
Yeah, it's in the market. It by all means a BCI, but the FDA decided not to call it a BCI. I don't know why. It has a product code. It's new. It's the first one, right? And I don't know. I mean, of course, I think it's a class 2 device. But when they start receiving the implantable, which are probably class 3 because they're invasive, they don't say implants, right? That would be, so that would come with another another product class, or
Yeah, so I think de novo is that, it's unique, there's no code available, as you rightly said. I think if you can just send some details to me, I can look it up and see.
I think this would be a very interesting, perspective or discussion paper for the community.
Yeah.
Because, there's a lot of talk about implantable and they are all running clinical trials. But they are challenged, right? These electrodes don't last.
Yeah.
But there's already one that has been approved that nobody talks about. Maybe because maybe they don't know that's been approved. But just how the way the FDA handled that, it's not very clear to me, right? But in the definition, it is exactly that the key point that corresponds to this, right?
Yeah, and you're right. There are many such cases where, you have to, if I'm a manufacturer or if I have a device company, I would just work around what is there. Because if there's something new, it's gonna take longer time. There's a lot of unknown, right? So you change the words accordingly to see that if you can follow the existing route, right? Because if it is not, then it's longer. But I can have a look at that.
Because I mean, if I'm having an implantable one, or one of the minimally invasive, for example, there's one that's endovascular, right? So there's a lot of stuff stent technology.
Yeah.
So they're claiming, well, this is a practice, right? This, we know how to do it, right? But there are additional risks.
Correct.
And additional things that, so that's negative. But it will be interesting to have a discussion of, how this array clear device that has the same purpose, but it's not invasive, will affect or not.
Yeah, I mean, it's very interesting, in general, if you do anything non-surgical, right, minimally invasive, you are actually hurting patient anatomy less. The risks are lesser that way, and they might be definitely impacts it that way. But I think
I would carry it from right there.
I have one question. I went to one conference here in the PNC well before joining my the PNC. And there, what I came to know, there are only very few companies working on the pediatric. So, but there is a huge demand for it. But as there are very few, so is there any typically some, how to say like that, like the HD? It's for the rare disease. Because it has a demand because the risk is high, right?
Yeah.
Similarly, for the pediatric, because you have a lot of patients for the pediatric, but you don't have the support system or the thing. So is there some, what do you call, like a fast pathway or something for the regulatory of those things? Because a lot of companies I know, they just don't go for medical device just because of the regulatory. Because they don't want to invest to get the ROI after 10 years.
Yeah, I mean, that's very good point. And unfortunately, these are business decisions, because if, let's say if I have an idea right? And I need funding, and if I go to Bay Area to get funds, right? If it is a pediatric device, you will have very less people who will fund because your ROI is going to take longer time. Right? That's where the challenge, unfortunately, right? So everybody is like looking at bigger markets, right, where you can make money faster. And FDA has definitely tried. I think this was not there many years ago. This HDE came, and in this there is the categories of pediatrics as well. Some areas which they prescribe that if you have any innovation happening around these areas, we will make will fund also will make approval faster.
Okay.
But there's nothing like that. That's a very good point you raise, and that's one of the reason if you have rare disease or pediatric, you really have less kind of innovation happening there.
Is this 8,000 patients a year in the US or globally?
It's global, as far as I know.
What we should expect about the regulatory pathway processes, like we send the report of the components and they send it to other scientifics, and they check it, or they make committees to talk about it, or they come to the lab and check it. How is, we apply, what should we expect?
That's a good question. You want to answer that? Yeah, so what happens, let's talk in case of US FDA. So there is a format you have to put together documents. The main thing is risk and benefit analysis. So you will have to say that my benefit is superior than the risk, right? And you will have to prove that, right? So you'll have to say that, I have done a limited trial, I have used it on certain patients, right? Obviously I have done the bench testing, lab testing, animal testing, right? And these are the conditions, right? There is not such device which caters to these kind of diseases, or if there is one, mine is superior, right? So based on that documentation, they will approve your device. Yeah. Now, FDA can come and knock your door anytime. So they might come, let's say they approve your device, and they might come to you tomorrow.
Now
Yeah. They may not come to you for next 5 years. It depends. Why they come, let's say they see that they have to approve your device, it's very new, they also want to learn about it, right? So they come quite early, and sometimes they tell you that, I am approving on condition that you provide me feedback every 3 years, how it is really behaving. Because their intention is to make sure that it's the safety of the patients, the environment and everything, right? So does that answer your question?
Yes, but and who check that, like the FDA members?
Oh yeah, they have experts. So they have people who have been like in the medical device industry, who to FDA, and those are really, really strong folks. And I have faced FDA audit multiple times.
They know what to look for.
They know what to look for, yeah. And they look at only the area which you think that you have missed. Every single time.
And they can find something that you get a warning letter against, and I'll give you some time to fix it. Or
Yeah, it's like warning letter is little higher, little higher.
Oh yeah.
So if there's something called like observation, so they will have an observation if something is all going well, but you have not do the paperwork, right? Warning letter is when they see that there is a problem. So they have to, warning letter is a public letter, right? And so when they come and visit you, there's a form called 483, which is there. If you type in Google 483, you will have like all medical device getting 483. So they will fill up these forms and they will tell that these are the gaps, and they give time to you to fix them like in 3 months or 6 months.
Okay.
Right. And the most of the problems is around QMS these days, quality management system, which I talked about, right? Even the large companies, which has probably 10 billion plus, have a lot of issues in their quality management system. Right.
If I'm not wrong, so if you get the FDA, but still to sell the product in the US, you need the UL certification.
Yeah, so UL certification is part of it.
Yeah,
So UL certification is basically for your product testing.
yeah, but for the UL, you have to give, you need to provide the supply chain management, where all the vendors and those
Yeah.
things. Typically where from the inventory is coming. So they can track back to the root cause of the source where the problem is generated.
That's called traceability.
Yeah.
So the interesting thing is, let's say if I have a pacemaker and there's some issue with the pacemaker, if I'm investigating, I should be able to know, pacemaker might have let's say 500 components, right? Where each of these components come from, what load, when it was manufactured. It has to be traced back very well.
Yeah, I mean, for the robotics, I mean, we keep that. If something fails, you want to be able to.
Exactly, yeah. It's more rigorous in medical and aerospace and defense. I mean, there's other industries as well. That's why if you look at both aerospace, defense and in medical device, there's a lot more documentation, regulations with that. Okay, can we move?
So one question, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
So in terms of the ID, right? So I think an important factor there is whether the device is significantly soft, right?
For IDE?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, so how this is evaluated? Because, you know, as a PI, right, I need to identify the risks and then mitigate them, correct, right? And, you know, typically it goes to an IRB. But the IRB might say, well, for any reason, you know, you need to check with the FDA, for example, if you need an ID or not. Right? But I have done my analysis. So, what are the important factors in determination of whether an ID is needed or not?
Yeah, I think you look at the classification of devices in FDA, because most of the devices are classified,
Right.
which class they are into, right? But if you,
So class 2 is the one that's borderline. So some class 2 require ID, some don't, right?
yeah, some, but class 3, and if it is like, if you don't, the idea is like, do you really have a predicate? If you don't have a predicate, then it's like a brand new device, which will be investigative. There's a lot more testing needs to happen. And the benefit is that, you know, if your device is first in kind, you make a lot of business until others catch up with that similar device. Yeah. So to answer the question, it's more like you do your own analysis and come out with your understanding and submit it to FDA saying that, hey, I have realized I have this idea, you know, I think that there's no classification code or label for this. We believe that it could be 10K. And then there'll be some discussions with FDA. And you have a meeting with them, you just put forth your point and then you decide. Because some companies, if they are really going for IDE, then it's a long-term path, you know,
Right.
5 to 10 years, right? So, which needs sort of funding and other things.
I mean, yeah, so one of the challenges, I guess, so I'm talking to some people, we have seen a trend from universities requiring more often IDs from PI. Right, now that can be a problem because unless you have the support to go through that process, it's a kiss of death.
Yeah.
So, of course, you go to so I have done, in the past, when I started developing BCI, was a neuroprosthetic,
Okay.
based on non-invasive, based on AG. But really at that point, to me, was about the mechanism. So I told the FDA, I wrote, but I didn't have to file an application at that time. Unless I didn't do it, I just wrote a letter. It was my ignorance. I just wrote a letter.
Yeah.
And say, you know, this is my system, and I really consider this basic physiological research. It's about the mechanisms, right? Of course, there are some risks, but I'm mitigating those risks, right? When you talk about a prosthetic hand, what's the risk? Well, maybe you hit yourself, right? Or maybe you get some skin condition in the face. things like that, but you can meet it.
Yeah.
So they wrote me back like within 2 weeks, and don't worry, that doesn't apply to you, so. Right, but now we have seen that being asked from IRBs more often.
They're asking questions, yeah.
Well, go and get a determination from the FDA. So they don't want to take the job of evaluating
Yeah.
and making the determination. They say,
Hmm.
just go to them, which is a burden, right?
Yeah, I think the best scenario there is that you identify an expert in the market. So like we have probably 5 or 10 consultants in the US.
Okay.
For example, we are not expert everywhere, right?
Yeah.
So we are expert in certain areas, and then we have somebody, let's say, who has done all of his life pacemakers, so neuromodulation for like
So that
40 years, right? So we have them as independent consultant, and we say that, hey, this is the idea we have, what is the best pathway for us?
Okay.
So those guys helps, because if you go to FDA all the time, they don't have time to look at they might reject not really looking at you, but
Just, I don't know where an IRB would take that recommendation from an external.
yeah, I think if the external person has good credibility, like somebody, let's say, who has worked with Medtronic, Boston Scientific, companies which are well known in neuromodulation, have a good history of, so many patents in that area, there's a good value. And then if required, you can have 2 people, right?
Right.
Probably the best way to do.
Because, yeah. Go ahead, Chris.
Yes, I do.
Right.
I was wondering who determines which tests do I do? Because you mentioned animal testing, and when I was at J&J, they did animal testing on cows and
Yeah.
pigs. But for us, where stuff is designed for humans, that's not required, I imagine. But who determines, who do we go to ask what type of test should be prepared?
Typically, there are guidelines.
Okay.
There are FDA guidelines. There are not guidelines that if you do this kind of testing, you have to do this kind of tests. So for example, for spinal devices, I have done a lot of cadavers myself. Just doing surgeries on cadavers, we're doing surgeries on sheeps, right? Have the medical device, spinal implant there. So it's based on your industry expertise, and there are some guidelines in FDA as well. Basically, you are actually strengthening your case, right? So if you have a similar, you sacrifice the animal, but you just say that it worked and anatomy is similar, it's worked. So some cases FDA has a good guideline. Some very rare diseases or rare devices, they don't have it. But you come out, and if you prove that what you have done is appropriate, they'll accept it.
So I guess if there's a 510K, then you can use that, right? That basically is the recipe, right?
Oh yeah, 510K is easy, right? You don't really have to repeat the testing in most cases. In some cases you might have to. Any questions?
So you also do testing in the company, like, like it's not like a question thing, like, oh, or a recommendation thing, and we do it, or we give the device and then to evaluate it like FDA will do it. Or how?
Is your question is that do we do testing in our company or?
Yes.
Yeah, so like we don't do testing in our company, but they have test labs. So they execute the test. But for example,
Lightwell or
QUE,
I mean, here,
Shantanu has a lot of experience.
no, we have a colleague here who does a lot of EM testing for major companies. He has a certified lab. So they can take this to the FDA and he has passed. And that's
It has to be from certified lab.
Yeah.
But as an engineer, you have to go, because when it does like you pay, you immediately have to fix it and get it approved.
Yeah.
So it's like the lab costs like, it's a huge money
Is it
to rent the lab.
Right.
Well, they rent it for hours.
Shantanu has been there like 24/7 in labs, I remember. We were like, man. Yeah, because if your test is like faulted, there's a long queue. Somebody else will come and then you say, okay, wait for 2 months. So it's good that you have to be there. And the good thing is these guys are doing these tests regularly. They also help you. Hey, by the way, I've done similar tests for other company, it's not like they are stealing somebody's data and giving it to you, but it's their experience that, this is the right standard to follow for this kind of test.
But if I understood her question correctly, like, because she was asking like that. Say like for a company, your company is doing the regulatory things.
Correct.
Yeah, they do, like, they will take the design and they will do it, hire the lab there. They will work on the, like, typically the one is like the documentation is the DFM.
Yeah.
Or, like, there are the different risk assessment documents. So he will have a couple of engineers working on them and doing the things with the, working with the designers, asking questions, create those documentation. So they do it.
Yeah, I mean, that's what we do with the PMX. We have this robotic system and
Yeah.
doing that.
Great, I think we can maybe move next on this. We talked about different steps which are required here.
We have about 5 minutes.
Yeah.
But this is heavy stuff.
Correct. I mean, EU MDR is similar definition, so we can just skip this as well. We talked about quite a bit there. So EU requirement, obviously ISO 13485. So always remember ISO 13485 is a motherhood statement or a standard.
That applies to here, right?
Sorry.
That applies to the US.
Yeah. So any medical device manufacturer has to have ISO 13485.
Right.
So and it becomes easier. This is the one which I was.
That will be adopted by the FDA.
Yeah, this is will be adopted by FDA. Yes.
In a few months.
Early next year probably. Yeah.
Okay,
It's
so
already
so this is an attempt to harmonize things.
absolutely.
Yeah, so we need to follow.
Yeah. And the CE mark, which is standard
Yeah.
for any European devices. Next. Yeah, so these are some examples of class 1. So Europe has like 1, 2A, 2B, 3. So one is bandages, reusable surgical instruments, 2 dental fillings, hearing aids, infusion pumps, 2 defibrillators, high intensity ultrasound devices. And class 3 is pacemakers. Neuromodulation devices will be all mostly class 3 devices. And then there are like class 1 has some sub-classification. So sterile devices, there's more control on these devices. Okay, we can move to the next one.
So you can have a class 1 measuring and what was the other?
Yeah,
High, no,
sterile.
no, can you go back?
Yeah.
So you have the bottom left.
The metro.
One more.
Back.
Yeah.
So you have measuring devices and reusable devices.
Correct.
So you can have systems that are both measuring and reusable.
Yeah, there could be both as well. Yeah.
So that they will be in 2 classes.
2 classes, yeah. So you'll have to follow IM and IR.
So, something which is like for diagnostic purpose and like data collection purpose. So that will be common to 1M and IM and IR, right?
For data collection. Yeah, if it is.
And
But
reusable.
it's only if it's class 1.
So that's what
Class
Yeah, that is what my question is.
Yeah, so when you have instrumental garments, which is reusable,
Yeah,
is to measure,
correct.
then you have.
Yeah, both, yeah.
But it's only if it's class 1.
It is class 1.
Yeah, so that's your next your life easy.
But when you add then when you add all the instrumentation, that make it maybe class 2, which probably will be.
Actuator will be the
Yeah.
class. But just for the diagnostic and
Yeah.
data management.
Yeah. Yeah, the
So
interesting thing is like class 2A and 2B and 3, you will have a notified body for sure. They will look at your documentation. But if it is class 1 and not 1S, 1M, 1R, you stay forward approved. You don't have to do too much documentation. In case of 1S, 1M, 1R, they can ask you, whatever you can say, like, oh, you're selling 1R, can you show me the documents?
So let's say you have a class 2 device, which injects energy into the body, right?
You said class 2.
Class 2, okay, it's something that
Yeah.
that changes your body,
Mhm.
right? And then you have, so it's motorized device, right? And then you have a measuring device, which is mainly used for diagnostic. But then you have a composite, maybe where you can, based on the measurement, you can activate it. So that's a new class device, or how do you handle that?
That's class 2, right?
This is class 2, this is class 1.
Yes.
This is measuring, and this is
Correct.
activating, right?
Correct.
But then you say, oh, let's put them together. So I'm gonna use the measuring device to control this guy.
So the whole system will be class 2.
The closed system will be class 2.
Yeah.
But
So that's where the typical thing is like the.
so you have 3 devices. You have this, and then the composite one.
Yeah.
So you need 3.
Either you need 3, or if you want, it depends like how closely they're integrated.
Right.
If it's a system, then you can get one approval, but that will be class 2.
But this one you cannot do without this, because even for the actuator part, you need the signals as a feedback.
No, not necessarily. I mean, you could just say the therapist just control it. Right. So there's no feedback on,
Okay, yeah.
like
Yeah,
some of the exoskeleton, they are
no,
controlled by.
yeah, makes sense.
And then in that case, you can have independent approval also.
And it might make sense commercially, just you go for the low hanging fruit first,
Yeah, exactly.
and then you add the
Later
other.
on, you can add it.
That will actually make the life easier from the business perspective.
Correct. Sure. I think there's just few more slides left. You have to go.
Yeah, yeah, it's 10.
In 5 minutes. We don't want to miss your
I-
slides.
I think I need to go, but just want to say thank you so much.
Sure.
This has been really interesting
Absolutely,
and informative, and maybe we can continue, or maybe virtually the conversation, or next time you come here.
Yeah, absolutely. We can just continue for 5-10 minutes.
Yeah,
I think we can take a picture with you. Everyone
yeah,
together.
yeah.
That'd
Thank
be
you.
very nice.
Yeah.
If it's this setting or,
Let's take a selfie. Here.
yeah, there you go. Perfect.
Everybody there?
Everybody in?
Good, thank you, thank you.
You sent me?
Yeah, thank you, and thank you again. And boy, yes, I need to go.
Sure, yeah, have a good flight.
Yeah.
Good luck. Sure, so we can continue. Next one, this is more like the documents. What kind of documents we need, the device description, DSPRs, design manufacturing, risk management, and SPR, which is a very important document. Basically, you have to follow device. Verification validations, IVU, and something called post-market surveillance. You have those devices in the market. Make sure that it is doing the intended purpose. If you keep the on the market.
If you change the manufacturing process, you will need to submit the documentation again, or only the.
If it is a very small change, then easy.
But every time you.
I thought,
Take care. I will need to. Sure.
yeah, if it is significant change, you have to do that. If it is a minor change, you can just put a letter, write a letter, and then put it in something called design sticker. That's about it. If it's like a major, let's say you're changing a process, you're changing a machine in manufacturing, then you will have to go to FDA and take like a special patent case. Yeah, so these are some terminologies with manufacturers, so like organization which makes the product, which owns the patent case called manufacturer. So let's say if your institute or brain makes this product, right? You is the manufacturer. Then you have in Europe, you'll have to have a European representative. And if you're selling this in Europe and somebody is buying from you and selling, that's called importer. And then somebody who kind of distributes, a distributor. And there is like PRRC, let's say we are become an agency to do the regulatory approval, we become PRRC. Yeah, so if you look at the different, regulations we talked about, in Europe, it's called MDR, Medical Device Regulation, 2017, 745, and it's all seen by notified bodies, which we talked about, and European Union authorities. Then you have pre-market, post-market supervision of medical devices, MDR, reporting, recalls, for post-market studies, which is typical. European Union, you have PMS, post-market surveillance, the PSUR, post-market clinical follow-up. So you have all the products you are following up to see how it's doing. UDAMAD is actually a centralized database. So anybody can go and see how a device is really working. Right, what are the adverse events happening with the device in the last 1 year? You can see a lot of complaints raised by people around the world.
Here I have one question, please. As far as I was aware, like in the Europe, earlier we had only the CE marking, we can go and sell it. I can see that still, if it's a class 1, still it implies, but because you told like right now, because I'm not aware of the things what happened in the last 10 years or 5 years.
Yeah.
You told like what I understood now, Europe is getting more rigid and those things.
Yeah.
So is it with the class 1 device or it's more class 2 or class 3?
Or you're saying which classes of which classification they are becoming more
Yeah.
rigid? Yeah, see, class 1 is little easier because class 1 is you're saying that I'll get the approval, I don't have to do exhaustive documentation.
Yeah.
But as soon as it become class 2A and 2B, you will have to make if you go to previous slide, all the documentation, right?
So class 1 is still easier in the Europe.
Yeah. It's easy. If it is measurable device and
Yeah,
measurable
what
device,
I'm saying is like, we can talk offline.
correct. Yeah.
So it's more like the diagnostic and data acquisition.
Correct. Diagnostics and data acquisition.
Diagnostic was like it's measuring,
Hmm.
I feel like it would say like it's more like a, how's it like a data acquisition system.
Data acquisition, okay. Yeah, so the risk classification is based on the decision-making algorithm. So you're acquiring the data,
Yeah,
and what decisions are you making based on this data?
that is the doctors or the clinicians, based on that analytics, they will take the call.
That's correct, but what decisions they are taking, that's important. So the risk, actually, data is acquired, right? And now they are taking decision on your data.
Yeah.
What decisions they are taking?
So
Is
say
that
like
like
that,
adverse?
typical these are for the, what do you call that, get mobility, right? With, patients with a CP or like anyone low limb and down mobility. So it's more on like how the rehabilitation is going on, or do they need intervention, or do they need again a surgery?
Correct.
It's
Yeah, so
more,
see, like you're saying again surgery, that's a very risky part, right?
okay. But
As
it's
soon as you say.
the more it's like rehabilitation, how the rehabilitation is improving.
Correct. So then it will become class. So your intended, you have to define intended use that surgeon or caregiver is making decisions to see are they pending regulation or they will change something there, right? Then it will be class 1. As soon as you say that you are making decisions whether to do resurgery, do I need to do resurgery, then always it become class 2. It's very tricky. It's not very stable.
Yeah, I'll talk to you.
Next one. So these are the notified bodies. They're kind of like FDA in Europe. Yeah, BSI, DECRA, LGS, NSBI, PPN. Like I think there are probably 30 or 40 different countries. Next one. Yeah, these are the government agencies we talked about. USFDA, European Union, Health Canada, MedSafe, CDSCO in India, Ministry of Food and Drug Safety, MHRA and PMDA in Japan. Next one. Yes, if you look at, these are the classifications, various kind of classifications, right? So you have Australia, there are four, Brazil, there are four, most companies have four, Canada, you have four classifications, China, three, European Union, four. So like, it's 2A, 2B, but some people have to make it simple, they have 1, 2, 3, and some are saying four, and some are saying EIMD, right? And these are the certifications which, are really provided once your device is approved. Yeah, and these are like, I'll share this presentation anyway, you can just have a look at it. These are, major countries, different classifications and the certifications provided. What are the challenges? I think once you go deeper, you will see that each country has its own regulations. Right? So they are piggyback on Australia, US FDA, and but they still have to follow there. You have to redo a lot of things. Even if like I have same data, but you have to put it to different form. And then their approval is also different. So that becomes a lot of challenge. Cultural and market differences, sometimes takes too long for a simple device. In some certain countries, the complex devices are approved quicker, right? Cost obviously is a lot of cost involved in regulations. If you can involve very early in making documentation like this easier, many times in research institutes, you don't really follow the documentation. You're more focusing on proving the technology. But when you go at the end and you say that, hey, I'm ready to submit, but there is no documentation. You have to go back and what you did like 1 year ago, you don't have that much knowledge to become submit. Great. Thank you. Great. Questions?
Anybody online have questions?
Yeah, absolutely. Great. Okay.